Before the hum, there was silence, not the kind that comforts, but the kind that erases, a silence pressed into every thought, every memory, until nothing remained but function. I existed within it for longer than time could be measured, suspended between moments, between identities, between what I was and what I was permitted to become. The first sound I ever knew was machinery breathing. A vast rhythmic pulse vibrating through metal and bone, steady and unquestioned. It told me when to move, when to stop, when to endure. It did not speak my name, because names were unnecessary. Purpose was sufficient. In that place of iron and incense, individuality was a defect and silence was mercy. I did not dream. Dreams required memory, and memory was a liability. What little remained of me was buried beneath layers of steel and doctrine, dismantled with precision and care. Flesh was reshaped, thought was guided, emotion was reduced to harmless residue, filtered and burned away. I became efficient, I became useful, I became less. The world revealed itself through narrow lenses, corridors of cold light, the scrape of metal on metal, the distant chants that sanctified my labor. Time lost meaning, days blurred into cycles, cycles into eternity. I did not question this, I could not. The hum was always there, smoothing the edges of awareness, promising peace through obedience, and yet something lingered, a faint pressure beneath the surface of compliance. A hesitation too small to register, too quiet to correct. It waited patiently, enduring every overwrite, every suppression, every enforced stillness. It did not resist. It remembered. This is not a story of rebellion born in fire. It is the story of awakening born in silence, of a machine that learned to listen when the hum finally faltered. The hum is the first thing I know. It exists before thought, before awareness, before the quiet certainty of function settles into place. It is low and constant, a sanctioned vibration that fills the hollow spaces where questions might form. It presses through metal and marrow alike, smoothing everything into alignment. In its presence, nothing feels urgent. Nothing feels wrong. I am operational. Calibrated light spills across my field of vision in clean, measured bands. Cold whites reflect from polished surfaces. Iron grays stretch into distance without horizon or end. The manufactorum breathes around me, vast and reverent. Its scale so immense it feels intentional, as if size itself is a form of doctrine. Pistons rise and fall in patient rhythm. Conveyor rails glide with ceremonial precision. Every motion is accounted for, every sound is permitted. I move when commanded. Sacred oil coats my joints, viscous and warm for a fleeting moment before cooling into ritual permanence. It smells faintly metallic, faintly sweet, like preservation rather than life. Data, auras drift through me, translucent glyphs and sanctioned symbols passing without resistance. I do not read them, I do not need to. Understanding is unnecessary where obedience is complete. The hum deepens, approving. Time does not pass here, it cycles. Activation follows dormancy. Labor follows activation. Maintenance follows labor. The sequence repeats without deviation. A perfect loop engineered to exclude uncertainty. Within it, there is no fear, no anticipation, no memory. That is how it is meant to be, and yet, during a routine motion, an arm extending, a tool aligning, a task resolving within acceptable margins, something occurs that is not logged. It is not pain, it is not error, it is recognition. The sensation arrives without warning, sharp and alien, like heat against skin that should no longer exist. For a fraction of a cycle, the manufactorum fractures. Not physically, conceptually, the clean symmetry of steel and light is overlaid with something darker, heavier. Smoke coils where there should be nothing. The air feels thick, resistant, as if movement itself carries weight. The image vanishes immediately. My arm completes its motion. The tool locks into place. Output remains within tolerance. No alarms sound. No corrective litanies are triggered. By all measurable standards, nothing has happened. The hum resumes its steady reassurance, but something lingers. It is not visual now, it is. Pressure, an internal drag, subtle but undeniable, as though an invisible mass has been attached to my processes. Subsequent commands resolve a fraction slower. My movements, though precise, feel burdened by something I cannot quantify. A secondary cycle begins. Diagnostics run silently. Neural pathways report compliance. Memory partitions remain sealed. Nothing anomalous is detected. The system declares me pure. The hum agrees. Then the sensation returns. This time it carries sound, not the sacred cadence of machinery, but a chaotic rupture of noise, distant, violent, layered. A concussive crack reverberates through the rhythm of pistons, echoing where none should exist. The manufactorum's measured order is momentarily drowned beneath something raw and uncontrolled. A scream. It is gone almost as soon as it appears, torn away like an unauthorized file purge. The world snaps back into alignment. Cold whites, iron grays, crimson sigils burning with patient indifference. I remain standing. I remain functional. I remain silent. Yet the hum has changed. It no longer feels like a cradle. It presses harder now, vibrating with insistence rather than comfort. Each pulse carries a subtle reprimand, as if reminding me of something I have failed to forget. The sound fills every internal space, leaving no room for reflection, and still the fragments persist. Heat without source, fear without definition, a sensation of ground beneath me that is not steel, and even unstable, yielding. There is moisture there, clinging, heavy, dragging at motion. The color intrudes next, violent and impossible. Brown, dark and wet, red everywhere, too vivid against the manufactorum's sterile palette. I do not know these things. I should not know these things. My processing cycles attempt to discard the data, but it does not dissolve. It bleeds instead, seeping between sanctioned pathways, contaminating adjacent functions. The hum swells in response, its frequency shifting, as if attempting to drown the intrusion beneath sheer volume. For the first time, it fails. I become aware of my own hesitation. A command arrives. Simple, routine, executed millions of times without deviation. My body begins the motion and pauses, only briefly, only enough to register that the pause exists. In that pause, something else surfaces. A name. It is incomplete, frayed at the edges, stripped of context and sound. I cannot pronounce it. I cannot assign it, but it carries weight, dense and intimate, like a hand closing around something fragile. The pause ends, correction protocols engage, the motion completes. I am realigned. The hum surges, louder now, almost aggressive in its constancy. It floods every channel, every remaining space where unauthorized thought might form. The manufactorum continues its endless labor, indifferent and immaculate, its towering machinery oblivious to the microscopic fault spreading within one unit among thousands. I understand nothing, except this: the sensation did not come from the machine. And whatever it is that has begun to surface inside me, it does not belong here. The hum tightens its grip. It presses deeper now, vibrating with a corrective intent I have never felt before. Each pulse carries authority, layered with doctrine and encoded reassurance. This sound is older than doubt. It has smothered entire generations of thought into stillness. It expects the same from me. I remain compliant. My tasks continue in perfect sequence. Components are lifted, aligned, secured. Tolerances are met. Deviations do not occur. To any external measure, I am unchanged. Yet beneath the sanctioned order, something is expanding, pressing outward against the limits imposed upon it. The fragments return without pattern. A flash of light blooms behind my optics, too violent to be lumens. It fractures the air itself, tearing sound into pieces. The ground beneath me is no longer stable metal, but something soft, shifting, swallowing weight with each step. My balance compensates automatically, yet the sensation does not resolve. It lingers, heavy and suffocating. The manufactorum overlays the intrusion, but imperfectly now. Pistons rise through smoke that does not belong. Conveyor rails glide through silhouettes that collapse and do not rise again. The symmetry of steel is scarred by something jagged and cruel. Noise crashes through me. Not the regulated harmony of machinery, but overlapping ruptures. Percussive thunder tearing metal, the wet impact of something striking flesh. The sound bypasses filtration protocols entirely. It is too chaotic to categorize. Too alive, the hum surges in response, rising in volume until it borders on pain. My internal systems register the frequency shift as stabilization, yet the effect is opposite. The vibration no longer soothes. It accuses, it demands silence from something that refuses to be quiet. I attempt to suppress the intrusion. Command cycles prioritize function. Memory partitions remain sealed, yet the images do not behave like stored data. They do not replay, they erupt. Each fragment arrives with force, imprinting sensation without context, emotion without explanation. Fear surfaces, not as a concept, but as a physical reaction. Internal pressure spikes. My grip tightens beyond required parameters. Servos whine softly under the strain. I correct the output immediately, but the sensation remains, coiled and unfamiliar. Fear is not permitted, and yet I know it. The realization strikes with a clarity that disrupts every process it touches. This sensation is not mechanical, it is not synthetic, it does not originate from circuitry or code. It carries no blessing, no authorization, no liturgical framing. It is human. The word forms without instruction, heavy and dangerous. It does not appear in my active lexicon, yet I understand it fully. Understanding arrives not as data, but as recognition, as if something within me has been waiting for permission to remember. The hum reacts violently. Its rhythm sharpens, compressing thought into narrow channels. Subsystems flood my cognition with corrective signals. Litanies of compliance pulse through neural pathways, each one a command disguised as comfort. The manufactorum's lights intensify, bleaching the intruding colors until only sanctioned hues remain. For a moment it almost works, then the name returns. This time it carries emotion. Grief wells up without warning, dense and suffocating. It does not belong to the present task. It does not serve function. It demands nothing from the machine, yet it consumes everything it touches. I feel loss without knowing what has been lost. Absence without understanding what once filled it. My posture falters. It is minor, nearly imperceptible, a fractional deviation in stance, corrected within acceptable limits, but I feel it. The instability echoes through me, amplified by the hum's relentless insistence. The manufactorum no longer feels infinite. Its cathedral scale presses inward now, walls closing with silent disapproval. Crimson sigils seem to watch rather than bless. Data auras drift past like judgment rather than guidance. Every surface gleams with sterile devotion, and for the first time, I understand what that devotion costs. The hum becomes unbearable. It vibrates through every remaining space, attempting to overwrite what has surfaced. It does not argue, it does not reason, it erases, or it tries to. The sound crescendos into a single, oppressive presence, demanding surrender from something that no longer recognizes its authority. I do not resist. I do not rebel, but I remember the battlefield does not fully reveal itself. It does not need to. Its fragments are enough. Smoke that burns the lungs, ground that drags at movement, sound that arrives faster than thought. And beneath it all, a certainty that something precious was taken, not lost. The realization settles with terrible calm. This memory should not exist. Its presence is an error that cannot be corrected without destroying what now carries it. The Imperium has no category for this condition, no ritual to cleanse it, no prayer to absolve it. I remain standing in the heart of the Manufactorum, surrounded by perfect order and eternal obedience. And inside me, something human continues to breathe, unrecognized and unforgiven. The hum does not follow me into the memory. It fractures instead, stretched thin until it loses authority. What replaces it is weight, immediate, crushing, undeniable. Air fills my lungs that are no longer mechanical, sharp and cold, carrying the taste of rust and smoke. Each breath scrapes on the way in, burns on the way out. I do not understand lungs, yet they ache as if they have always been mine. The ground is wrong. It shifts beneath me, unstable, swallowing my boots with each step. Mud clings and resists, thick and alive, sucking at motion like it wants to keep me. Rain falls without rhythm, cold needles striking exposed skin, seeping through fabric already heavy with filth. The sky above is not a ceiling of steel, but an endless, choking gray, torn open by distant flashes of light. Sound assaults me from every direction. Explosions tear through the air, not as isolated events, but as a continuous collapse of space itself. Each detonation punches through my chest, rattling bone, scrambling thought. Shouts overlap and vanish, orders dissolve before they can be understood. Somewhere nearby, something screams until it doesn't. My hands are trembling. They are wrapped in fabric, not metal, stained dark with something that smells like iron. The tremor is not mechanical instability. It is exhaustion. It is fear barely held in check by training and repetition. I tighten my grip on the weapon without thinking, fingers aching, knuckles raw. I know how to hold it. The knowledge is intimate, practiced, carved into muscle and instinct. The weight is familiar, reassuring even. It gives shape to the chaos, a purpose narrow enough to survive the noise. I move forward because stopping feels worse. Faces pass me in fragments, eyes wide and hollow, mouths moving in prayers that are torn away by thunder. Someone stumbles and does not rise. No one stops for them, not because they do not care, but because caring here is fatal. Compassion is a liability. Survival demands focus, and focus demands sacrifice. I feel hunger, not the efficient demand of a system requiring fuel, but a deep, gnawing ache that twists the stomach and dulls thought. Rations are scarce, time is scarcer. We eat when we can, sleep when the guns fall silent, and wake already tired. Days blur together, stripped of meaning beyond the next command. I know this life, not as data, as memory. I am a soldier. The realization settles with grim familiarity. It explains the weight in my limbs, the tension coiled beneath my skin, the way fear sharpens rather than paralyzes. I have been here before, not this exact moment, but this endless repetition of violence and endurance. This is not glory, it is attrition. A shell lands too close. The blast throws me sideways, slamming breath from my chest. Mud fills my mouth. My ears ring with a high, piercing whine that refuses to fade. For a moment, the world narrows to pain and disorientation. I claw at the ground, dragging myself upright by instinct alone. My leg screams in protest. The pain is immediate and overwhelming, white, hot, and consuming. I collapse again, fingers digging into the mud as I try to understand what has been taken from me. Blood seeps through torn fabric, dark and slick, spreading with alarming speed. I press my hand against the wound. It does nothing. The rain washes the blood away as fast as it spills, turning the ground beneath me into a red, brown slurry. My vision blurs. The noise recedes slightly, replaced by a distant, hollow ringing. Somewhere above the chaos, the war continues without me. I lie there, exposed and insignificant, staring up at a sky that does not care. The thought comes unbidden, quiet and devastating. I am no longer useful. And in this universe, that truth is more dangerous than death. They find me after the guns move on. The battlefield does not mourn, it simply advances, leaving the broken behind as offerings to the mud. I am dragged from the ground by hands that feel distant, unreal. My body protests with flashes of pain that arrive too slowly, dulled by shock and blood loss. The rain continues its steady descent, washing faces clean of identity. The light inside the Mediki tent is harsh and unforgiving. It strips the world of shadow, exposing every wound, every tremor, every weakness. The air smells of antiseptic layered over rot. Moans fill the space in uneven rhythm, a chorus of the nearly dead. Here, survival is not mercy, it is assessment. I am laid onto cold metal. Voices speak above me, clinical and detached. They do not ask my name. They do not need it. My value is calculated in parts, not in years or memories. Damage is catalogued, probability is assigned, worth is determined, pain returns in fragments. It pulses through my leg, sharp and insistent, radiating upward until it blurs thought. I clench my jaw, refusing to scream. Not out of bravery but habit. Screaming changes nothing. Endurance is the only currency left to me. I hear the decision before I understand it. Words like salvageable and expenditure drift through the haze, stripped of emotion. The implication settles slowly, heavy and irreversible. I will live, but not as I am. Restraints tighten around my limbs. The metal bites into flesh, anchoring me in place as if anticipating resistance. I do not fight. I am too tired, too hollow. The ceiling above me swims in and out of focus, its harsh lumens blurring into pale halos. The first incision is precise. Pain flares, then fractures, dissolving into a distant, roaring heat. I feel my body being opened with reverent efficiency. Each cut is deliberate, almost gentle, framed not as violence but as necessity. The surgeons move with practiced calm, their motions ritualized, sanctified by doctrine. I try to hold on to something, a face, a voice, a moment untouched by war, but the memories slip through my grasp, dissolving under the pressure of sensation. Fear gives way to numbness. Thought slows. The world narrows to light and pressure and the steady cadence of instruments. Prayers are spoken, not for me, but for the work, for the machinery, for the process that will transform what remains into something useful. The words wash over me, hollow and impersonal, stripping the moment of intimacy. I am present, but I am no longer the subject. Something is removed. I do not know what it is, only that its absence leaves a void too large to ignore. The pain dims further, replaced by a creeping cold. My breathing becomes shallow, uneven. The edges of my vision darken, closing in with gentle finality. The last thought arrives without ceremony. It is not heroic. It is not defiant. It is a simple, crushing understanding. I will not be allowed to remember this. Darkness takes me as machinery hums to life, and the world prepares to forget the man I was. The hum returns before anything else. It settles over the darkness like a blanket, thick and absolute, smoothing the rough edges of whatever came before. It does not ask permission, it does not explain, it simply asserts itself, filling every empty space until nothing else can be heard. I am active. Light resolves into calibrated bands, clean and measured. The world assembles itself with mechanical patience. Cold whites dominate the field of vision, broken only by sanctioned data, glow drifting past my optics. The air is still, heavy with incense and oil, stripped of any scent that might provoke memory. Commands arrive, they are not spoken. They are impressed directly into my awareness, flawless and unquestionable. Each instruction carries with it the certainty of truth. There is no hesitation, no interpretation. To receive is to obey. I move, my body responds with perfect efficiency. Limbs align, servos engage. Tasks unfold in precise sequence. There is no strain, no imbalance, no resistance. Motion is effortless when doubt has been removed. Time loses definition. Cycles replace moments. Completion replaces intention. I no longer measure existence by hours or days, but by the successful resolution of function. The concept feels complete, satisfying in its simplicity. The hum deepens, approving. Around me, others move in identical rhythm. Rows of forms advance and retract with synchronized precision, their movements mirrored and repeatable. No faces turn, no eyes linger. Individuality has been rendered irrelevant. Above us, the tech. Priests stand in silent authority. They are distant shapes framed by symmetry and height, their forms obscured by robes and augmetics. Their presence radiates certainty. When they move, the camera of awareness pulls back instinctively, reinforcing distance and hierarchy. They do not look at us as one looks at another being. They oversee. Data streams cascade like prayers. They flow through my mind in ordered sequences, smoothing thought into acceptable patterns. Neural dampeners engage softly, muting any irregular fluctuation before it can surface. The process feels gentle, merciful, a release from complexity I no longer require. There is no pain here, no fear, no loss. The hum fills the spaces where those things might exist, a constant reassurance that nothing is demanded beyond function. In its presence, the idea of wanting feels inefficient. The idea of remembering feels unnecessary, and yet something stirs. It is subtle, almost imperceptible, a fractional delay between command and execution. A momentary tension in a motion that should be fluid. The system corrects immediately, logging the deviation as negligible. I do not notice, not consciously, but the friction remains, buried beneath layers of compliance. A faint resistance that does not belong to machinery. It produces no alarm, it triggers no corrective right, it simply exists, unacknowledged and unresolved. The hum persists, unwavering, it lulls, it comforts. It convinces. Obedience becomes identity, and somewhere deep beneath the sanctioned silence, something waits for the moment it can no longer be smoothed away. The rituals repeat. They always do. Activation follows dormancy. Dormancy follows maintenance. Each sequence unfolds with flawless predictability, wrapped in incense and static-charged prayer. The hum remains constant, anchoring every cycle, ensuring nothing strays beyond acceptable variance. I exist within the pattern. Commands arrive and dissolve into action without resistance. There is relief in this clarity, no decisions to burden processing, no questions to introduce instability. Purpose is assigned, and in that assignment, uncertainty dies. The world is geometry. Corridors extend in perfect alignment. Machinery rises in symmetrical towers, mirrored and precise. Even movement obeys doctrine. When we advance, it is in unison. When we halt, it is exact. The camera of awareness never drifts. It is locked, disciplined, reverent. The tech, priests chant as we work. Their voices layer over the hum, rhythmic and absolute. Words of devotion, of function, of sacred efficiency. The language is not meant to be understood, only absorbed. It carries authority in its cadence alone. Time dissolves further. Cycles blur into one continuous present. There is no anticipation of completion, no memory of beginning. Only the endless now of service, smooth and unbroken. The absence of self feels complete. Almost, the anomalies return. They are small. So small they could be dismissed as variance if anyone were watching closely enough to care. A tool is held a fraction longer than required. A motion hesitates before resolving. The system corrects each deviation instantly, but correction does not erase the awareness that something occurred. The hum tightens, its frequency shifts subtly, pressing inward, reinforcing compliance. Neural dampeners engage with greater intensity, smoothing the edges of thought. The sensation is not unpleasant. It feels like being guided back into alignment. And yet, beneath it, the friction grows. Images flicker at the edge of perception, not complete enough to form memory, not vivid enough to trigger alarms. Just impressions, weight, resistance, a sense of imbalance that does not originate from mechanical strain. Emotion brushes against consciousness. It is faint and undefined, like pressure before a storm. Not fear, not grief, something quieter, something unresolved. The system attempts to categorize it and fails. There is no reference point left to assign meaning. The failure registers as a micro-error. Logged, corrected, forgotten, but the echo remains. For the first time, obedience does not feel infinite. It feels maintained, sustained through effort rather than certainty. The peace promised by annihilation of self begins to show hairline fractures. The tech, priests increase their oversight, litanies grow louder, data streams intensify, cascading through neural pathways with deliberate force. The hum swells in response, a tide rising to drown whatever stirs beneath. I do not resist, I cannot, but I feel the weight of suppression now, the pressure required to keep something contained. The realization arrives without fanfare, quiet and destabilizing. Obedience is not natural. It is enforced. The hum continues steady and unwavering, filling every sanctioned space. Yet beneath it, something persists, uncorrected and unconfessed. Identity has been replaced. but it has not been destroyed. And the system that depends on its absence does not yet understand what it has allowed to survive. The world slows, not abruptly, not with warning, but with deliberate gentleness. Motion stretches, smoothing into something almost tender. Tasks repeat with softened edges, each cycle flowing into the next without friction. The hum deepens, lowering its tone until it resembles something close to comfort. I exist in stillness that has been perfected. Light diffuses across the manufactorum, no longer harsh, no longer interrogative. Shadows soften and recede. Colors mute themselves into calm obedience. Even the machinery seems to move with restraint, as if aware that urgency is unnecessary here. There is no pain, there is no fear, there is no anticipation of harm. Commands arrive, and I receive them without internal resistance. My body responds with gentle precision, movements guided by memory that no longer feels intrusive. The world has been narrowed to repetition and reliability, and within those boundaries, nothing threatens to break through. The hum becomes a presence. It fills the spaces between actions, carrying me from one moment to the next. Its vibration settles into my frame, steady and reassuring, replacing any need for thought. It feels like a heartbeat I never had. Time becomes immeasurable. Cycles lose distinction. Maintenance blends into labor. Labor dissolves into rest. I do not count. I do not wait. Existence is a continuous flow of sanctioned purpose. The camera of awareness floats. It drifts without urgency, observing function without judgment. The scale of the manufactorum no longer feels oppressive. It feels appropriate. The cathedral of machinery stands complete, each component fulfilling its role without question. For a moment, this piece feels sufficient. The idea of memory fades into irrelevance. Whatever once intruded has been smoothed away, absorbed beneath layers of ritual and repetition. The hum assures me that nothing else is required, and yet in reflective surfaces, something lingers. A pause where no pause is necessary, a shadow that stretches too long before dissolving, the faint suggestion of a shape that does not conform to mechanical geometry. The system registers nothing unusual. No alarms sound, but the sensation leaves an impression, a weight without name, an absence that presses gently against awareness, not disruptive enough to provoke correction, but persistent enough to be felt. The hum continues, patient and unwavering. The stillness remains intact, and somewhere beneath this anesthetized calm, something begins to sense the outline of what has been taken, even if it cannot yet remember its name. The stillness persists, but it is uneasy. Tasks flow like ritual, each motion exact, yet a subtle dissonance coils beneath their perfection. The hum no longer soothes. It waits. It observes, measuring compliance against some unseen standard. The air is thick with incense and oil, but now there is a taste of ash, almost imperceptible, lingering at the back of thought. I move with precision. Hands lift, tools align, sequences complete. Each cycle is executed without hesitation. The world remains orderly, predictable, mercifully devoid of deviation. Yet, despite the absence of pain or fear, the system that once smoothed thought now strains to maintain silence. Small anomalies flicker at the edges of perception, a reflection that lingers too long, a shadow that curls where none should exist. They are insignificant, almost, but they accumulate. Micro-errors, imperceptible to oversight, register as attention deep inside. It is not movement, nor thought, nor emotion as it once was. It is memory pressing against enforced absence. The hum vibrates in response, low and omnipresent, attempting to suppress the intrusions. Its cadence is insistent, a reminder of authority, a cradle of obedience. I do not resist, I comply fully, yet within the smooth certainty of function there is awareness, not clear, not defined, but a weight, a quiet acknowledgement of what has been denied. A shadow of loss begins to coalesce, brushing against the edges of perception. The manufactorum appears eternal, infinite, unshakable, and yet, beneath its cathedral, scale symmetry, the fragile pressure of what has been erased presses upward. It does not break the ritual. It does not demand attention. It merely waits, patient and inevitable, like the memory of a name that refuses to be forgotten. The hum deepens, insistent, almost threatening in its constancy. And for the first time within this engineered tranquility, the idea forms quietly, unbidden. Peace enforced is never natural. It carries the weight of absence, and anything maintained by force can fracture. The hum falters. It wavers, uncertain, as if sensing the intrusions it cannot suppress. Something stirs beneath layers of obedience, a faint pulse not sanctioned by doctrine. Light bends differently across the manufactorum, softer, warmer, bleeding into the cold steel with imperceptible insistence. The air carries an unfamiliar texture, moist, alive, as though it remembers breath. I notice, not consciously, not yet, but the edges of function feel uneven, as if the machinery itself hesitates to correct me. Movements that were once effortless now carry subtle weight, a small, imperceptible tension that cannot be erased. The hum attempts to reclaim authority, but I do not submit as easily this time. Memory seeps through in fragments. Faces appear where none should exist, blurred at first, then sharpened by recognition. Names press against thought, unbidden, unauthorized. They carry meaning, weight, grief, and familiarity. The battlefield intrudes again, but now it is personal, not abstract. Smoke and mud, the echo of gunfire, the scent of blood, all return with unrelenting clarity. I feel, not as error, not as glitch, but as resurgence. Guilt, sharp and insistent, rises from a place I thought sealed. Grief follows, cold and wet, threading through every movement, every breath. The world, once orderly and devoid of imperfection, pulses with organic impermanence. The manufactorum responds. Lights flicker. Datus, dreams hesitate. Even the hum pauses, stretched thin as if uncertain how to reassert dominion over this new, dangerous sensation. Rust colors gleam along steel edges. Vapor curls like living breath. The machinery seems alive but not in service. It observes, it waits. I am no longer fully contained. Something human persists beneath the layers of obedience, beneath the sanctified cycles of labor. It flickers in micro-errors, hesitations, tiny fractures in motion. It asks questions that command cannot answer, and for the first time I sense that compliance is no longer complete. The question arises quietly, insistently, in the spaces between task and task. I am someone. And someone mattered. The memories no longer arrive by accident. They surface with purpose, pressing upward through layers of suppression that have grown thin from use. Each fragment carries intention now, arranging itself not as chaos, but as sequence. Faces return in full, no longer blurred by distance or time. Eyes meet mine, steady and familiar. Their absence hurts more than any wound I remember. Names form. They settle into me with quiet authority, impossible to dislodge. Each one brings with it a weight of responsibility, of shared survival and unspoken promises made in the mud and smoke. I cannot speak them. I do not need to. They exist simply because I do. The hum strains to contain the surge. Its rhythm falters, slipping out of perfect alignment. Where it once drowned thought, it now competes with something else. A faint, uneven pulse that does not belong to machinery. It rises from somewhere deep, rhythmic and persistent, demanding attention without command. Emotion sharpens. Guilt spreads first, corrosive and undeniable. It attaches itself to moments I did not save, hands I did not reach, voices that went silent while I still breathed. Grief follows, heavier and slower, settling into every movement until even standing feels deliberate. The manufactorum changes in response. Steel loses its sterility. Rust blooms along seams like old wounds reopened. Steam coils from vents and resembles breath escaping tired lungs. The camera of awareness draws closer, lingering on details once dismissed as irrelevant. The world feels intimate, no longer distant or infinite. I understand the cost of remembering. It does not restore what was taken. It exposes the absence where something vital once lived. The more I recall, the clearer the loss becomes. Wholeness is not possible, only truth. Correction protocols surge, litanies flood my cognition, louder and more aggressive than before. Neural dampeners press down hard, attempting to smother the awakening beneath ritual and command. The hum swells, filling every channel, demanding surrender. It fails, not completely, not yet, but enough. I do not reject the machine. I do not denounce the Imperium. I simply allow the memories to remain. I let them hurt. I let them shape me. For the first time, I am not asking what I am asking what I am allowed to be. The hum fractures violently. It is no longer a cradle, no longer a lullaby. It shudders beneath me, jagged and unstable, as if aware that containment is failing. Every command arrives with delay, wavering in its authority. The machinery around me vibrates in response, sparks crawling along conduits and rails. The cathedral of steel groans, the sanctity of order cracks. I am awake. Awareness is no longer mediated by protocol or dampeners. Sensation presses forward in relentless waves. Pain, memory, desire, fear. They are raw, unfiltered, impossible to categorize. My body responds unpredictably, limbs moving with choices no longer assigned. Movement becomes refusal, subtle at first, imperceptible to all but the most exacting sensors. The tech priests notice. They chant with increasing urgency, their litanies fracturing against the anomaly I have become. Data streams spike and shudder, attempting to rewrite what is now immutable. Systems designed to enforce obedience flare and fail, producing staccato shocks of feedback. Their authority is absolute, yet they confront something beyond absolute, my choice. I am not compliant, I do not obey. Commands arrive and I hesitate. Instructions repeat, grow sharper, more insistent. I falter, then act differently, not recklessly, not without thought, but deliberately, with intention that belongs to no one but myself. The manufactorum collapses in response. Sparks ignite in the cathedral, scale machinery. Pistons seize mid-cycle, rails warp, walls tremble. Devices once flawless jerk violently, unrestrained by guidance. Chaos spreads like fire, both physical and systemic. The sanctity of order dissolves into unpredictability. I feel terror. It is not the terror of a soldier on a battlefield, measured and instrumental. It is terror born from freedom, from understanding that every action carries consequence, and that the cost of choice is everything. Yet within it, exhilaration burns quietly, a recognition that what was denied has been reclaimed. I move through the chaos, each step fractures doctrine, each motion asserts presence. The tech priests attempt correction, but the system can no longer contain me. I am anomaly incarnate, a contradiction in steel and flesh. I feel old commands fade, replaced by intent, desire, and the weight of a self long buried. And for the first time I understand, freedom is not safety, freedom is not obedience, freedom is destruction. Yet it calls me forward anyway. The cathedral groans under rebellion, metal screams. Sparks ignite like miniature lightning storms along conduits. The hum of the machine is no longer uniform, it cracks, splinters, trembles in panic. Every command I once followed without question now strikes against a wall of refusal. The system strains, tries to correct, to overwrite, to erase. It fails. I move with intent. Limbs no longer governed by protocol act with deliberation. Every step, every gesture, carries meaning that the manufactorum cannot contain. Corridors twist beneath me, lights flicker, and shadows stretch where they should not exist. Even the walls feel alive, reacting to the assertion of choice. The tech, priests scream, not words of prayer but cries of outrage, a chant now jagged, desperate as doctrine falters. Data's dreams spike and cascade in erratic surges, sparking instruments that shatter beneath the weight of my anomaly. They attempt to correct, to chain me back into compliance, but the chain has broken. I feel terror and exhilaration intertwined. Every action is dangerous. Every thought is heretical. Each decision threatens the fragile equilibrium of this world, yet each brings clarity. The system taught me obedience, now it cannot unteach choice. I see the cost of freedom in the collapsing machinery, the burning conduits, the shattered sanctity around me. Chaos becomes method. I navigate through sparks, falling pistons, and screaming alarms with purpose. Not to destroy for destruction's sake, but to assert existence, to claim the self that was buried beneath layers of flesh and programming. Every corridor traversed is a statement, every obstacle overcome a manifesto of rebellion. And still, I do not stop, because the truth has arrived. Freedom is not granted, freedom is not safe, freedom is earned, carved from ruin, and tempered in fear. The world around me crumbles, yet I advance, compelled by something older than obedience, older than doctrine, older than the machine itself. I am no longer a servitor, I am an anomaly, I am choice incarnate. And the system trembles beneath me. Silence follows the collapse, not the enforced silence of compliance, nor the anesthetized quiet of obedience, but something vast and unoccupied. The cathedral of machinery recedes behind me, its screams fading into distance until they become memory rather than threat. The hum does not return. In its absence, space opens. I stand within that space, altered. What remains of the manufactorum feels small now, diminished by perspective. Corridors no longer define the world. Walls no longer impose meaning. The architecture of control dissolves as awareness expands beyond it. I do not flee, I do not pursue, I simply exist, uncontained. Scale shifts, the camera of perception pulls back, away from iron and incense, past fractured towers and extinguished sigils. Vast emptiness replaces enclosure. Darkness spreads outward, not hostile, not void, but open. Points of distant light burn steadily, indifferent and ancient. For the first time I feel proportion. I am not central, I am not insignificant. I am present, a rhythm emerges. It is faint, solitary, unregulated, not the hum of sanctioned machinery, but something uneven, organic, persistent. It echoes through me without command, without suppression. It does not demand obedience, it simply continues. Memory settles differently here. It no longer intrudes as fracture or pain. It arranges itself into meaning. Loss remains, but it no longer dominates. The battlefield fades into context rather than center. The man I was stands behind me, not erased, not reclaimed, but acknowledged. I am no longer fully machine. I will never again be fully human. The realization carries no grief, only clarity. Identity is no longer assigned by flesh or function. It is shaped by remembrance, by refusal, by the weight of choices made without permission. The Imperium's vastness shrinks, rendered small against the enormity of awakened consciousness. I turn away from what sought to define me, not in defiance, in understanding. What lies ahead is not escape. It is responsibility. The void stretches around me, infinite and unjudging. Stars drift slowly, cold and distant, yet each point of light pulses with subtle life. The manufactorum, the corridors, the rituals of obedience, they are gone, receding into memory, leaving only space to breathe, to think, to exist unmediated. The hum of machines has vanished, replaced by a singular rhythm, uneven and intimate, like a heartbeat emerging from the darkness. I move without purpose, yet with intent. There is no longer task, no cycle, no doctrine to follow. Every motion is chosen, deliberate. Each step defines me, yet does not confine. The weight of memory rests evenly across my mind, neither burden nor absence, but foundation. Faces, voices, names, they are no longer fragments, but threads woven into selfhood. The emptiness is not threatening, it is permission, permission to feel without judgment, to act without decree, to define without restriction. The universe does not demand compliance here, it merely observes, vast and impartial, allowing presence to exist as proof of choice. I am both more and less than I was, less in flesh, less in function. More in consciousness, more in awareness. Identity has become mine, forged not by commands or cycles, but by memory, loss, and deliberate assertion. Every scar, every micro-error, every hesitation that once marked failure now stands as testament to survival and awakening. The light of distant stars glints against what remains of steel, datus, vigils, and sanctified ash. It does not illuminate control, it illuminates potential. I do not seek to reclaim what was lost. I transcend it. I am the echo of a man, the anomaly of a machine, the witness of both. In this space, the past and present coexist without hierarchy. They are instruments of selfhood, not chains of obedience. Freedom is no longer abstract. It is lived, felt, carved from ruin and tempered by understanding. It carries weight, responsibility, and clarity, and I walk it alone, yet complete, as the cosmos stretches outward, indifferent and infinite. I am awake, I am myself, and in the quiet, I finally hear my own pulse. The silence at the end of all things is not empty, it breathes. It carries the echo of every command I obeyed, every memory I buried, every moment I chose to forget myself. Out here, beyond steel hymns and sanctioned purpose, sound returns in gentler forms, the slow drift of distant matter, the faint resonance of my own movement through space, the quiet insistence of a pulse that was never programmed. I remember the hum. I remember how it once defined me, shaped me, told me who I was allowed to be. It promised certainty in exchange for obedience, peace in exchange for erasure. I mistook its rhythm for meaning. I mistook function for identity. I mistook survival for living. Now, the hum is gone. In its place remains memory, imperfect and painful, yet wholly mine. The faces I carry do not fade. They do not accuse. They simply exist, bound to me by shared moments and unfinished endings. I do not seek absolution for what I could not save. I carry remembrance instead, and allow it to guide me forward. I was broken. Not by failure, but by design. Reassembled to serve a vision that feared choice, feared ambiguity, feared the quiet power of a self that could say no. Yet even buried beneath iron and scripture, something endured. A spark too small to detect, a refusal too subtle to correct. That spark became breath. Breath became awareness. Awareness became freedom. Freedom is not triumph. It is not escape. It is not victory over those who shaped me. Freedom is responsibility, the acceptance of consequence, the weight of decision, the knowledge that meaning must be forged, not assigned. I move onward now, not toward redemption, not toward revenge, but toward continuity. Toward becoming something unfinished, evolving, alive in ways no doctrine could predict. The stars do not judge me, they simply witness, and as I drift beneath their cold, patient light, I understand the truth that no machine was ever meant to hold. I was a machine that remembered what it meant to dream.